And we are live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another special edition of the stream. I don't know what to call this episode except the discussion on the Rebuild Initiative, which launched today. Talked about this earlier in Robin's stream, and we're going to have more discussion about it here. Say hello, everyone.
Hi!
Meh.
Live from the Apollo.
Anyway,
Hi.
for those unfamiliar, the Rebuild Initiative is a means for us to establish inroads with the developers who have been largely silent on the issues of Gamergate. That is to the corruption and bias in games journalism at the moment. We need to we need to we need to appeal. Okay, now that that's out of the way, we need to start writing in letters now to the ESA, that is the Entertainment Software Association, and the EMA, the Electronic Merchants Association. These two groups are very instrumental in the games development side of things. They're essentially lobbying trade unions who have come out and spoken on behalf of games development in the past, particularly on issues involving violence in video games when that was under fire back 10 years ago, and it's kind of being brought under fire again with but just with different language. And if we can get them on our side to help in our fight in the consumer revolt, that would be a good boon for us and a good boon for them, and it would also create a better market in which we can have more direct communication with the people making the games and we the consumers. And the journalists will, instead of being gatekeepers, become mediators. And this also establishes end goals for Gamergate, which is what we need to do at the moment to have ourselves more directed and more focused. And this won't supplant Operation Disrespectful Nod. This will go alongside it. Operation Disrespectful Nod is getting rid of the old guard. This is putting in a new guard. What are your guys' thoughts on this? Anyone?
That's beautiful, man.
Thank you, Tara.
It's
Our-
about time.
Yep. So anyway,
Everyone is in shock and awe of the glory and the beauty of how magnificent this is.
I cried a little bit.
It was Oscar-winning material, to be honest.
It was
10 out of
King's
10.
Speech level, yeah.
Guys, you're making me blush.
Oh, trust me, we were just lying.
I know right now on Twitter there's a few things going on at the same time. It's like a lot of people are starting to tweet about Operation Rebuild. And it's like I saw a tweet from Lo Ping shoved in between a tweet from Liz F. They're talking about two very different things. Apparently, over the night, there was some more e-drama, surprise, surprise, about people calling for the boycotting of devs and games and whatever using the Gamergate hashtag. This has absolutely nothing to do with that. This isn't a boycott. This is just kind of a call to arms to get people focused back on the real issues.
Yes, absolutely. I'm not going to really endorse any boycott of any games. I mean, there's certain developers who have said some rather uncouth things as of late. I believe that, but that's a completely separate issue. Make up your own mind of who you choose to spend money on or not. This campaign isn't going to stop your consumer choice of which games you want or don't want.
Here. So I believe Sour had some questions. Yes.
Yeah, I just have some questions here. I just wanted to know, how do we know for sure that developers and publishers have been silent due to games journalism retaliation?
Well, we know this because for one thing, we know a lot of developers have been very, very silent on the issues of Gamergate. It's been mostly hush-hush with some exceptions here and there, particularly on the AAA side of things. Indie devs have spoken out openly, and they've gotten massive backlash for it. The press has been very much trying to create this narrative wherein Gamergate is essentially using accusations of unethical practices in the journalistic scene as a shield to deflect the quote-unquote real reason we're going in we're doing this, which to them is essentially we're a hate movement and we hate women, even though we know that's not true. So because of this, people think that we're basically guilty of all kinds of dirty practices and stuff, and they will do everything they can to paint us in that picture because their jobs are kind of on the line when we make accusations against them, and they don't want that. So developers who speak out would naturally get backlash, and there has already been a bunch of developers who have gotten backlash, and a lot of developers have only been able to do so anonymously if they say anything at all. So there definitely is a push by the press and the power they wield to stop people from really even having a neutral stance on the issues.
I'm going to have to play devil's advocate here. Well, some would have to criticize then that this document is basically saying that, well, it says the environment has become less safe. Now, some might say it might be the case because of Gamergate, that Gamergate has made the gaming environment unsafe for certain people. How would you respond to that, considering those on the pro-GG side might, in fact, shun people for speaking out on their own opinions? That has been levied against GG in certain cases as well.
That is absolutely untrue. The opposition, by and large, has been doing more and far more any dirty play or dirty tactics, such as harassing, dogpiling, shaming, and all other kinds of pretty nasty stuff. I mean, they've been pretty much they've said things as far as in an extreme example, one of them actually said that we should all be gassed. If there is a toxic environment that is preventing us from them from speaking out, that basically Gamergate is the reason why they can't. It's not coming from the people asking about trying to bring a call to bring back ethical standards in the journalistic scene. It's from the opposition who's basically continuously been landblasting us and trying to make us look like a hate movement, which is pretty much evident at this point that when someone like David Pakman is like requesting an interview and he gets dogpiled for it when he has a neutral approach, and then the CBC on top of that decides to go ahead and basically marginalize him as being part of Gamergate for being neutral, it's not coming from us. That is coming from the opposition. So that's really another part of the narrative that's being pushed by the press and the continued reinforcement of it. The assertion is just completely unfounded, and it's not true.
So let me just reiterate something. So these handwritten letters, as they are, they're emphasizing the fact that these devs or AAA companies know about Gamergate and are sympathetic to it, or that they don't know about Gamergate and would like to speak out about it, or what is it just both?
We don't know for sure exactly all the feelings of all the devs and all the companies, all the people involved. We do know that there is potentially a high-ranking official that is sympathetic to our cause based on his Twitter activity.
Okay.
And we do know that many people have made statements about alluding to Gamergate, but not actually directly coming to the forefront, whether it be a positive or a negative opinion. It's kind of like something that people are not wanting to touch because they feel that it's unsafe to do so, and it goes beyond their interests. That's probably not that's most likely not a coincidence. It's almost certainly done by the PR and HR people working at these companies that are saying that they really can't say anything about it. Did you have more? Did you have another question?
I do. It's more of the lines of anybody can really answer this, and I wanted to know specifically, is there a so-called separation between gamers and consumers and journalists and developers? Because that's what it sort of looks like, and from my political standpoint, it almost reminds me of politicians and voters and journalists, and how they all pretty much, it's a circle, and they're all supposed to basically benefit from each other and their activities. And when I look at it from, no offense to any game journalists out there, they just look like a joke at this point. No offense, but it doesn't seem as though that circle is being as honest or as unbiased as they claim it is.
Well, what's going on is basically the journalists have been acting by and large under their own modus operandi. Basically, what I mean by that is they basically all the top websites of gaming journalists right now seem to all have the same, seem to be all ideologically aligned, and they also seem to have the same capitalistic interests as each other, and this has resulted in a lot of collusion,
But
such
not,
as
sorry to interrupt you, but not only that, it seems as though it's the same ideology, which to me is quite astounding.
yes, that is quite astounding, and it does seem like there is definitely a push for that ideology on the consumer base. A lot of times, games have actually been changed as a result of this, such as the game Smite was continuously blasted for pornifying goddesses, when in truth that was not the case. The developers actually did their legwork and their research on the mythological origins of all the characters in the game, including the goddesses, including the portrayals from ancient texts and such. I recommend, for more details on this, I recommend watching a video by the game theorists on this subject, or yes, that would be the one. And it's this kind of push that is really a problem. And it's also come into like the financial sector when it comes to review scores and who gets and which games get which reviews and how they hype things up only to tear them down. And a parallel to this could be celebrity culture, which is a big problem in America, where they will laud celebrities and then just use them to basically promote sensationalist articles and outrage pieces, like decrying them for like the littlest things about them. But when it comes to the gaming scene, when it comes to the gaming market, they will do the same thing, except not with celebrities, but with games. And they're not acting on behalf of anyone's interest other than themselves, because it will just result in more clicks for the website, which will get them more advertising money, which only benefits them. And if you read the comments of a lot of these articles, you can see that there's overwhelming disagreement. Like, a lot of people get mad at these journalists that they keep on promoting this thing, but they see that as a means to exploit that outrage, so that way they can create more articles. And then they create a negative feedback loop, which is the exact opposite of what should be happening, where it should be a positive feedback loop, wherein the journalists act as mediators by touting the interests of the consumer and then touting the responses back from the developers, so that way they can have a live communication.
And I think if anyone went to any of these, because I recently wanted to check out Stephen Totilo, I was doing some research, and the way he responds to some of those comments underneath, it's just as if he just doesn't care. People were referencing and going, well, what about Gamergate? Isn't this a very important story? No, this isn't a very important story. You don't need to worry about it, essentially. So, I mean, they don't really take this very seriously at all, which astounds me.
I think everyone needs to Google the term yellow journalism.
Yeah.
That's essentially what gaming, it's never been real journalism, ever. Real journalism would be a lot closer to the stuff we've seen from Eric Kane than anything we've seen on like Polygon or Kotaku or whatever. It's like, I'm talking about things like industry practices, like pre-sales, microtransactions, talking about controversies like from that come out of Randy Pitchfork. It's like stuff like that. Those would be actual stories. And then investigating those stories and getting people on the telephone and interviewing them, that would be real journalism. These people just do fluff pieces. And like John said, I mean, essentially these websites are the Entertainment Tonight of video games. They're not, I mean, not even, I wouldn't even give them Entertainment Tonight status. They would say they're like the trashy tabloids as you're checking out at the grocery store, and they just have these crazy headlines that aren't really true, or if they are, like, there's maybe only like a fraction, like there are words on the page. And you're just like, oh, it was just to look at that. Octomom, it's like that's what yellow journalism is.
We've reached a point where YouTubers such as Total Biscuit have better standards and ethical interests and are better commentators as a whole on the industry. And for instance, another person who's going onto the YouTube scene, Jim Sterling.
That's true.
Yeah, he's decided that he doesn't want to work with Escapists anymore, so he's taking his brand and promoting it on YouTube. I'm not a big fan of Jim Sterling personally, but I fully support his decision in doing this because then I think he can have his own. I think he'd establish like a new media, which would be part of which would help in stabilizing, like removing power from the old guard, essentially. At this point, like the old guard seems to just want to stifle creativity and freedom of like making original art in games, and they also seem to be wanting to stifle create this. Like Tara was saying, they don't really comment anymore on the financial ends of things about how except for really basic stuff, but they don't really want to comment on how the market and what the best consumer practices are. Total Biscuit's been talking about this for years now, and the old guard, like I said, the major websites don't seem to be really involved in what the best choices to purchasing choices for consumers to buy, and this is not really helping the developers either because they're really going to be put into a position where they will have to keep on finding more ways to focus on the marketing, and then they have these journalists who are acting in their own interest to get clicks to their website. And like I said, it's a negative feedback loop, and it's not really helping anyone except those who wield the power of the press.
John, I was just checking out the hashtag, and there was a couple of bits of confusion that you just might want to sort of clear up. And I know it's not our goal, but yesterday there was something about boycotting devs that appeared, basically. About, I think it was something to do with BioWare. I'm not particularly sure about that, what that was, but just to dispel any rumours that anybody was involved with that or what that particularly was. I don't know if anybody else can share a light on, put a light on that.
I don't know what the details are with this move for a boycott. A boycott would I don't know the details of what that project's goal is. It may be a good idea. It might not be. I'm not largely. I do not know of anything about the project other than people have been making, other than some tweets I've read about it. Like there were some controversial statements by the creator of Far Cry 4 that people took offense to. Whether or not that's an indication of how good or bad the game will be, or whether or not that's a good indication of his, it would certainly be a good indication of his character. But I am not aware of the boycott efforts at this time, and I don't believe that. I cannot make too much of a commentary on it because I don't know about it and I haven't been in contact with those people arranging those boycotts for those specific games.
Well, I think the message to go away is people can do whatever they want, but basically they've got to think of whether it's progressive to, the future, rather than inactively engaging these people. I understand boycotting the media because these people are completely up in arms about it, but we're not entirely sure about the stance of the development studios, and I think this is why this is trying to reach out and do some good rather than just flat out reject them.
Right. Go ahead.
I think in this situation, I'm not 100% aware of it, but we need to be careful and not knee-jerk too hard, especially when it comes to devs and games. Games are there to be enjoyed. And I'm putting this out there. I like Fez, even if there might be controversy around the creator. So it's kind of an odd situation to be, but if people want to boycott a game for whatever reason, that's not what we're doing. But,
Yeah.
I think it's better to reach out to people than to just boycott and not talk to them or whatever.
I agree. I think it would... Go ahead, Tara.
I was just going to say a boycott is also a very personal decision in the sense that, like, I've been boycotting Day One DLC. I've been boycotting Gearbox after the fiasco with Aliens Colonial Marines. So it's just like, it's more of a personal decision of going, hey, I don't like what these people are doing, so I'm just not going to give them their money. as affecting the livelihoods of the individuals who work at those companies, it's like I feel bad for the artists who worked on Aliens turned out to be, the pile of dog crap that it ended up being. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to invest my money on another project that, you just so happen to be a part of because, I've been burned, so badly buying the limited edition in advance. I was like, I'm done.
On that note, I'm also not a fan of Gearbox, and I don't intend to buy their games in the future. However, if they do come out in support of reforming the market to make it a more free and open market, I would fully support them in doing that. So they can continue to put out their games, and it may actually make change my stance on their company. So,
yeah, everybody has a right to choose, and I'm there on Gearbox, but as Rebuild has in its sort of core is you don't have to email or handwrite anybody you don't particularly want to. You have your own personal choices, and I think most people are after Pitchford's what he said in recent months has been quite telling in the actions of his company. So yeah, so people are free to make their own choices, but if people do decide to become a force for good, they should reevaluate those. So.
Absolutely, and also it is important to note that there are definite disagreements between the AAA scene and the consumer scene, where we have differences of opinion, and rightfully so we do, because sometimes the AAA devs and the publishers, such as EA, do take stances that are anti-consumer and are not good on our behalf. However, there's a bigger problem right now with the journalists who are essentially bouncers, and once we can solve that problem, which would improve the line of communication, we can address and resolve these other issues. So we shouldn't look at the differences we have with them as them being a part of the enemy. We should look at them as more as potential allies.
On that note, I have another question. It might sound silly, but why handwritten letters? Oh, and when I do cards, because I make cards, yeah, that's a girly thing I do. Can I photograph them and share them, or like, is there any specifically that you would like to do, or?
Yeah, actually, that would be a good idea too. The more personalization you put into something, the more effort it shows. A handwritten letter shows that you took more effort and more time to craft it than just sending an email.
Okay.
Literally and metaphorically, a letter, it doesn't have to be handwritten necessarily. You could type it out on a keyboard and then print it out. A letter sent in the mail, literally and metaphorically, has more weight than 100 emails. So if we do it, it will show that people are really more interested in this than just sending an email.
Okay.
So it really is about the effect of the message it has. Photographing that, I do encourage people to photograph and push and show that people have sent the letters out, because it's one thing to spread a message, it's another thing to get people to actually enact on those, enact and join the campaign. So so by taking photographs of the letters you write, it will spread the word and it will inspire others to do the same.
I really like this so far. It sounds pretty good. As an aspiring dev, I think fan feedback is my lifeblood and is really every dev's lifeblood. So I think this is a very good thing so far.
Yes, it is. It's all about it's all about what the name implies, rebuild. We're building. We can't just tear down. We have to put something else in its place. And if we can keep this campaign going, we will be making we will be establishing goals, and we will be reaching a conclusion to Gamergate, because Gamergate is not going to last forever, and we need to see a positive outcome rather than a negative one that helps the industry, not one or the market rather, not the industry and the market, not one that that hurts it. So.
And whilst we understand, obviously, that Gamergate isn't going to last forever, and we said that, that doesn't mean the community is going to go away. So you don't have to see this as like You know, you don't have to knee-jerk and think that this is trying to kill the community or split the hashtag or things like that, as many people have accused many other sort of projects or things that are revolutionary, in their scope. This is about the community is still going to be there. The people that you've spoken to are still going to be there. But we have to get to a logical conclusion. We have to get to a stage where we've actually accomplished something or made an attempt, either way, to forge better relationships so that this doesn't happen again in the future.
Right. And I'm sorry, I had a thought that I lost it. Does anyone else have anything to say?
I was going to say the longer this goes on and the more we keep pushing for the truth, the crazier the opposition has gotten.
Tara, your camera's on.
You what, mate?
Nice view of the sky.
So, okay, good. I was like, oh, go Yankees, if you saw my hat. I was going to say, the longer, this keeps going, the crazier and crazier the opposition's getting. And, I mean, we're seeing this, like you said earlier, with David Pakman. Him, it really sucks, for him and his situation. However, it is shining a light on exactly how crazy these people are. And even recently, an ABC reporter came out and said that they willingly chose to report the harassment angle instead of corruption, and I think you're going to see more and more people are going to start seeing the light, and they're going to go, oh, maybe there really is something to this, and that's why it's going. I mean, I think it was Internet or Instagram or Monday Mac said, like, a hashtag doesn't get over 3 million followers, or 3 million tweets, it's a hate campaign, and I think, we're really starting to make a difference in turning public.
Right.
Yes.
Sorry, Pigeon, go ahead.
No, sorry, I was just agreeing and trying to fill that out. So, where's Sal at the moment?
I'm here. I'm just looking at stuff. I'm looking at the key points specifically. They seem very empathetic, and I think that's a refreshing thing, I think, to see from, because our image is supposedly being tarnished by all fronts. I mean, media and certain game developers, indie, mind you. I think it's sort of, I like this idea so far.
What's the chat saying at the moment?
Let's see.
Pain isn't fun. I'm not being derpy.
But I was just wondering, why is the document specifically focusing on empathy? Like, is that something you're trying to push right now? Why right now, out of all the times you could do it?
We need to show that we need to show that we do care about the industry. We need to show that we're not just like I said. We need to show that we're not just going to we're not constantly on attack just for the sake of being so, just for the sake of being outraged. We are gamers. We do care about the games we love. This is about establishing, making sure that we have our say within the medium, and we're not being silenced or censored by the journalistic websites or by certain interested parties who don't really have any feelings or care about the games industry. They just want to push an agenda or push their capital or something along those lines. We've seen a bunch. We are trying to make a positive campaign with this, and by showing empathy to the developers, we show that basically we do care about their work, we do appreciate what they do, and we want them to be on our side.
I like it. I mean, this is extremely positive. I think this is what I've been actually waiting for. Because I don't know if I'm the only one in this, but I'm just tired of the negativity, to be quite frank.
Mm-hmm.
I really needed something refreshing and just positive. Considering, I mean, the key points here talk about your experiences, how gaming has affected you personally, and what it means to you. I mean, Gwen did a video about what tabletop means to her, and I think if from along those lines, it makes it personal.
Yeah, whilst we've done lots of, feel-good stuff in the community, the message is somehow, been sort of lost about what we're trying to do overall, and I think this just really focuses it, on. And I think as well, we haven't been so much under attack in recent times, so it's allowed us to sort of focus on actually putting something coherent out there that will do some good. So I think it's the right time, and I think people are in the right frame of mind to start doing this. So.
Yep.
Yeah, I made a video where I talked about what gaming and tabletop meant to me, and I'm thinking if more people should make similar videos talking about just or even just post and send these emails and just talk about what this really means to you. I mean, to the many people since the Not Your Shield How Gaming Saved Their Lives video have spoken up, in comments and places about how video games kept them from suicide, and I'm one of those. And I think these messages need to get out there more. Games are important, and we love games, and we like people who make games. And this is really just about the games. About instead of the media tearing people down, we should just be pushing people up. That's all. I'm being derpy, but that's what I wanted to say.
No, I totally understand, and I agree with that. We should do more talking about games. We shouldn't be so on the offensive that we just lose sight of the greater picture. Like, for instance, sometimes we could just tweet out, okay, what's your favorite games, and then just like list 3 games. Or on the streams, a lot of times you have a lull and there's nothing to talk about. Talk about some gaming-related stuff, or even just talk about some more. Or instead of like constantly bickering about SJWs, for instance, talk about what's been going on through your day and what you've been going through essentially, and try to show that our community isn't all about constantly bickering about what's going on in Tumblr, or what's constantly going on, what's about in or what the feminists are up to, or what this group of people are up to, and that would really help.
I sort of have an extra question now that I'm looking at this again. What are your experiences with game journalists, and how have they positively or negatively impacted your experience with gaming? I don't know about this one, because potentially it could become a negative fest in a way. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but I mean, I don't know for sure. Speaking from my own personal experience, I moved away from a lot of video games over the past 4 years, ever since 2012 to be exact. Well, around that. No, 2009, I think. Yeah, 2009, and moved into tabletop because I liked the way reviews are actually done in tabletop. The way they're done is, in tabletop, you can't lie in a sense that you played the game. People are going to know. And I think Gwen can agree with me there. People are going to know.
They'll know.
They will know. If you
know.
didn't read the rules, if you didn't play the game, and you didn't share your experiences. I think in gaming, it's completely different. They didn't necessarily care about whether a person actually liked the game. Now, when I have a tabletop game, I have to care about every single person that's going to be in that group, because some people might not like the game at all, whether it be due to mechanics or concept. So I think in that regard, reviews within tabletop are almost, in my mind, they were better for me. They were more inclusive in a sense for me, and that's why I moved away. I don't know if I should put that in a card, per se, in a letter, and send it out to them, but I think I can empathize with certain developers where you can sort of tell when a reviewer did not play the game and didn't do their best to describe the game in an apt manner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
yeah, to answer your question, everyone's experiences are going to be different, and everyone's going to have a different view on how journalism has affected them. Those experiences are important to note in the letter, because we need to bring up the certain problems that we have with the industry and the market as a whole, and you can do this in a positive way. bringing up a problem isn't inherently negative in of itself. It's trying to bring something to the light, and we don't necessarily. And that's how basically it's going to be up to each person to incorporate that into the letters and what they talk about with their experiences.
So far, the chat there's only one discerning voice in the chat. Has anyone?
Oh yes, I saw that. I was about to address that.
Sergeant Giggle Mittens.
Yes, I saw that. To answer your question, Sergeant, I didn't say not to talk about GG. I don't know where you're getting that from. What I said was to stop focusing so much on SJWs and and other types of people who have essentially taken an authoritarian left stance on against us, which I get. It's bizarre.
You don't want to muddy the waters, essentially. The problem is that when you're contacting these people, you're probably contacting people that have less information than people who are actively in Gamergate do. And as far as they're concerned, if you start talking about SJWs and authoritarian left, they're not going to look into it. As far as they know, they might go, "I'm left. I don't know how to feel about this," So that's why it shouldn't be about that. It's very easy to muddy the message.
Well, if you look back up, he's not really a discerning voice. He's more of a dissenting voice. If you are unwilling to destroy the flow of money, you are wasting your time. Ubisoft, Blizzard, BioWare, all anti-GG, boycott them. Well, that's your opinion, dude. And that's just like your opinion. Nope.
As they said in the Big Lebowski, that's like your opinion, man.
Yeah.
I haven't played any of their games in so long I guess I just play cheaper, smaller games. But at the end of the day, what we're really looking at is this whole event. Gamergate is about games. Yes, there are many shades of these SJW people causing problems, and while there may be a tie, what really matters is focusing on the games, the people that make games, the companies that publish games, and remember that this is all about games. It's not about SJWs. They want this to be about them, but this is not about them. This is about games and us wanting to play games and us wanting honest, ethical review standards. We also want to let devs and publishers know we care and that we enjoy what they're doing, and we want everyone to just focus and remember and remind it's games. And while we can mess with the social stuff, it's kind of a side thing.
There's so much of an inherent issue with Sergeant Giggle Mitten's argument at the moment that it could do with its own stream, basically, to talk about it. But as Razorblade said, there's no need to boycott gaming companies. They're also boycotting themselves by releasing shitty games. And that's true. People vote with their wallets anyway. I mean, I'm not going to buy a game that doesn't appeal to me in the first place. And I'm not going to judge a company entirely by, just a couple of people who are loosely affiliated. I mean, there's only been one that came out, from Blizzard, and that was, actually, there might have been two, but the one was a senior copywriter. That's not someone that totally has, an effect on what goes into the game, the engine, or anything like that at all. It's like people are allowed to have their opinions. It's just it's when they become contradictory and when they're excluding sort of people. But that person wasn't a game dev that commented on that. So as I was saying, we could have this conversation in another stream, because it is rather a large sort of thing to boycott an entire company based on the actions of just two people. And some of which might not be game devs in the first place. That's just how I feel, anyway.
Yeah, the issues with SJWs is really a part of a greater war. It's not really what we're focused on here in Gamergate. What we're focused on is the corruption and bias in journalism. The whole social politics there going on right now, and I agree that there's a lot of problems right now that need to be addressed. However, you do need to note that there is essentially, they are two different things, even though they're related. And I believe that the more we get dragged into the greater war, the more we stop focusing on the battles of Gamergate, the less focused we become, and that will ultimately undo us. So we have to stay focused on this, and we have to prioritize what battles we can and cannot fight. Also, Black Knight just messaged me and he wants to come in, and I'm going to invite him on, so he should be here shortly.
Great. Fucking great.
Do we know any?
Win the corruption issue, break their income, if that's something that really matters to you.
Yeah, do we know? I mean, this Giggle Mittens is saying that there are devs that have been fired for supporting GG. Do we know any AAA devs that have been kicked out? For this at all?
Not
for having
AAA.
No. So I mean, that's mainly who we're trying to appeal to. To give them an opportunity without recrimination, basically, for speaking out. So you're kind of missing the point there, Mittens. So.
I think in large, what the people who have been trolling us since day one want to do is continue to focus on them and on SJWs and fighting instead of actually accomplishing something. They've been trying to play both sides and destroy the movement ever since it started.
I still don't.
They're trying to turn us into a movement and not just a consumer revolt because it's easier to destroy a movement. But if we just focus on the journalistics, because we're destroying a major part of their income by rallying around games that we care about and showing the corruption, they get less money because they won't be able to make cheap money by exploiting gamers anymore.
To add, I apologize. I lost my train of thought again. Pigeon, what were you saying before about fucking A or something?
Nothing. Fucking A.
Yeah, I'm literally gonna not pay attention to this half of this chat because there's somebody in there that's trying to rewrite the history of Gamergate, and then there's Mittens, which is just going around in circles. So.
Don't disrespect the chat. They can feel free to discuss.
Oh, they can, but some of it is just. It seems to be a bit.
Unproductive. Yeah.
Yeah, especially
Let's get
Gabriel
off the
Gray.
rebuild because I think we're getting distracted.
Well, I'm hiding the chat because Gabriel Gray is just literally trying to rewrite the beginning of Gamergate. So.
What's that? Sorry.
If you look.
I'd like to introduce Black Knight. I thought he might not come on board, but apparently he's feeling better. So welcome, Black Knight.
Hello. How you doing?
Pretty good.
Hey, no.
We were just discussing the rebuild initiative, and what are your thoughts on it so far?
I'm feeling pretty good about it. It's something that needs to be done. A new front for Gamergate, get more people involved, bring the developers and publishers in. Since they're being quiet either because it's the politically sound thing to do or because they have to due to their current relationship with the journalists. If there's a way that we can get developers, allow them to speak out, I mean, either positively or negatively about Gamergate, but just to allow them to speak at all, that would be a great step.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we can have all sorts of different opinions within this. It's the fact that it seems that the only response that we've been getting, for the most part, has been radio silence. And that's what we want to address.
Yeah, we just need the outreach to developers so that they're able to give their own opinions on this whole thing that's been happening in gaming with the gamers. Since you think with such an upheaval within their own business, they'd comment on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also hopefully it will. We won't be just hearing from very extreme points of view. Like there was a Blizzard developer who made a statement saying that implying that there should be a blacklist for people who supported Gamergate for the industry. Fortunately, however, he did apologize and he owned up to his mistake. But what we expect from this is to see more level-headed, more positive, and more people willing to say, all right, let's talk about these issues instead of just trying to throw them under the bus or trying to just say nothing about it or censor content. Like on the Blizzard forums, for instance, there's been many, many people who have been trying to talk about Gamergate but can't because the moderators there just delete all the comments and discussion threads. Hopefully we will see a change in attitude and more open dialogue will be had. For instance, if there's people who are against the consumer revolt, and they have actual concerns and reasons as opposed to just ad hominem attacks, and demonization, which is mostly what the opposition has been doing up until this point, then I would be more than welcome to hearing them out.
Of course.
Anyone else have anything they want to bring up?
John, how big and old is your dick?
It's.
I believe the correct question would be how old it is.
I don't know. It's
So,
older than
do we send it to? We send it to both Indie and AAA, correct?
That is
Yeah.
correct. We're also contacting the ESA
Okay.
and the
yes,
which is
also,
basically the I don't want to say it's the union, but it's like the trade organization, but it encompasses almost all the major game developers.
Okay. See, this is pretty nice because it personalizes Gamergate in a way that they probably couldn't see elsewhere. They'll probably get their news from a Gawker site.
Even more than that, it personalizes gamers,
Yeah,
their audience.
it's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, the big thing is we're pushing for a handwritten letter campaign, and I've been told a lot of times that a single well-written handwritten letter is worth 10,000 or 100,000 emails. Because in this day and age of the digital media, I mean, to take the time and effort to sit down, write a letter, and then send it. A lot of people don't want to do that.
Doesn't it? Like,
It does.
whereas an email is very easy to do. You don't have to be particularly have an emotional interest in the issue to send an email.
Yeah, it's like you can just copy paste what people want you to send, just send it from your account, send, done, 5 minutes or less, 2 minutes actually.
Yep, that's pretty much it.
Oh my gosh, get ready, AAA developers. You're going to see my awesome stationery. This is going to be great.
Like in giant jumbo crayon. No, it's sour and special.
I like basketball in the game.
on that
How
note,
did you know?
On that note, where was it? All right. While we are trying to primarily contact the Entertainment Software Association and the Electronic Merchants Associations, we are also trying to contact the dev studios and indie devs on these issues, so that way we can cast a wide net and we can appeal to as many people in the games creation scenes as possible. So if you feel inclined to send letters to game developers that you particularly support or that you think would be more interested to speaking out on these issues, then by all means, write them letters, email them.
So well said.
Thank you, Pigeon. Or am I falling for your sarcasm again?
No, that wasn't sarcasm. So yeah, is there anything else? Any questions from the chat or anything?
Yeah, let's take a few questions from the chat. We gotta wait a bit for them to actually hear about the whole because of the stream delay.
We'll just comment what's in there right now.
Well, right now they're talking about the history of Gamergate, which I don't want to get into on this stream. I'll be more than happy to talk about that on another stream.
Oh,
Are you trying
God,
to send
Gabriel.
first?
What? Oh, Gabriel Gray is stuck on the IRC chat as like what happens, in Gamergate, and oh, it's just so funny. Somebody's stuck in the beginning of times of this. It's been like 3 months, and people still go back to that.
Well, on that note, if you feel that at the beginning of this, basically there was a lot of wrongdoing by people who are now associated with Gamergate, I guess because Gamergate didn't actually exist back then, do note that just because something happens that may be bad, for instance, the original Zoe post. That post, while it did point out to, it was kind of a catalyst to a lot of corruption that was highlighted over the course of the past several months, that particular post was done from someone who was it wasn't done with that intent. It was done from someone who wanted to rebel, who he didn't handle his particular situation correctly, in my opinion, and it did lead to at least some harassment towards that developer, who shall remain nameless. But, well, actually not really, but to Zoe Quinn. And that's not really part of Gamergate. The things that people were more interested in was the links between Zoe Quinn and Nathan Grayson. And to be honest, Nathan Grayson was the one who should have been getting most of the flack, not Zoe Quinn. Nathan Grayson was the one who was implicated in his involvement with Zoe. Now, I believe that this situation could have been handled if they just fully disclosed the full nature of their relationship. Not any intimate details. I don't care what they do in the bedroom or don't do in the bedroom, but the nature of the relationship, as in how they knew each other and how friendly they were to each other, and whether or not there was a bias there in pieces that Nathan Grayson wrote. One of these claims that Nathan Grayson wrote a positive review of Zoe Quinn's game has been thoroughly debunked, but other implications of Nathan Grayson that he gave for positive coverage have not been, and the waters get very murky at this point onwards. But what really kicked off Gamergate wasn't that. It was the Gamers Are Dead articles that was done in response to it, and the massive censorship campaign that these websites went onto. The cover-up is worse than the crime. And if Stephen Totilo just made a statement about it, he could have just nipped this in the bud, and we wouldn't be here talking about the greater issues. So, in a sense, this whole Zoe drama needed to happen in order for positive change to occur. So, I don't believe that just because there was some wrongdoings before the start of this, that invalidates everything else that came afterwards. By that logic, the Civil War, slavery, all the black people should be slaves because of the Civil War, because it started with the war, and wars are bad. So because a war resolves something, the results of the war must also be bad. It does not make sense to me, so I don't buy that logic.
I don't even think the post itself was due to how it showed the overall collusion even beyond just a relationship that Quinn had. I mean, if you had the whole Wizard Chan incident and how they were basically...
Black Knight, you're cutting out there.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I was just saying, in terms of just the stories he recounted in terms of how her interactions with the game's media, like in regards to the Wizard Chan incident.
Moving on to... Well, I just wanted to address that because the chat was bringing it up, and I'll also...
There's no point bringing up the trying to counter Gabriel Gray. They've got the person's got their entire warped view on how it actually happened, or their entire view on how it happened, and they're not going to be persuaded otherwise. So we should just move on from that because it's got absolutely nothing to do with what we're trying to accomplish now. So
here's another question from the chat if we want to ask that. But it says, do you think that there will be a larger cultural backlash after Gamergate finishes?
I'll answer first. In my opinion, I don't know. I can't say. I mean, no one can predict the future, and I think there might be if Gamergate fails in its objectives and it just fizzles out, there actually might be a bigger backlash later on. There might be another incident which sparks this whole thing over again, and it may be on a wider scale. I don't know. It may also be that basically there is positive change that we want, and the culture war kind of subsides for a little while. Maybe there's some peace, and we just make some compromises. Or I don't know. I can't be sure exactly what the future will hold in that regard. So I can speculate, but ultimately my speculation will be in vain because I can make 1,000 predictions, and all of them will most likely be wrong.
I agree. They probably will be.
Well, I think look at the timeline of nerd culture. I mean, let's face it, video games came under attack in the 80s and throughout the 90s by, the right, by, sex-negative feminists, and, all that different, culture war that happened then. Joe Lieberman at the time wanted to get a constitutional ban on video games. Then, of course, we had the establishment of the rating system, and then everything kind of went away. And now you're just having a reemergence of the same kind of rhetoric and ideology. The professors are now teaching that failed. The professors that failed to get this done are now teaching.
You're cutting out a lot, sir.
I'll just stay.
She was trying to explain how it used to be back in the 80s that the right was the ones that were pretty much dogmatic in their stance against video games and video game culture, and now it seems as though the left, for some reason, is trying to claim this is trying to somehow change the market or highlight certain aspects of the culture they deem unsatisfactory. That's what her point was, and to me, I don't know if I don't know honestly if I really want to focus on feminism and gaming at this point, because to me, I could talk about feminism in a different field entirely. I don't think video games is the appropriate place to talk about politics to begin with, and this is coming from a political scientist, so I really don't like it when people make mention of, well, we need to talk about politics, we need to talk about that. I don't think it's necessary here per se.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I'm going to agree there. Gamergate has to remain apolitical for it to function well.
I agree.
As for the long haul, in terms of dealing with radical feminism in other fields, you already see some groups seeing some hope. Like, we've been getting a lot of information on what's been happening on tabletop gaming and how they came under attack really early on, and in that case, they basically had their way with the field. Then you have other ones like with Atheism Plus, where they just totally face planted on the rollout, so it never got as much traction. But I believe that if Gamergate does succeed and we manage to get our house in order and then kick out the influence, you'll see some other groups start to take notice and maybe even ask us for help. And then, of course, probably the bigger thing is now you're seeing the third wave feminists actually go after the tech industry as a whole. So this is just a battle in a much greater war.
There's also all of the older people raised by second waivers that they're currently having a massive infight with, and they're dealing with MRAs. All that we should care about is gaming, because I don't want to have to argue politics about gaming. I believe in doing activism for the poor, the disenfranchised, but that has nothing to do with frickin' gaming. I believe in LGBT rights, but that has nothing to do with gaming. If there's a gay character in a game, and there have been, then they're not, and not in the way that these people seem to want, which is tokenism, and that's fine. So I want to make my own games with LGBT characters, but I'll make my own frickin' games. Gaming isn't a social platform. It's not an activist platform. It's not a political platform. It's a platform for people to just fucking relax, because life sucks, things are busy, and some of us just want to play a game, have fun by ourselves or with our buddies. That's what this is about. Apolitical, not activist, just games.
Exactly, and just to address Sergeant Giggle Middens in the chat saying that we can't be apolitical, our whole platform is to get politics out of gaming. So if you consider saying no politics a political platform, fine. We're political in that sense. However, we don't want any politics or ideology being pushed through the medium.
Well, Mittens seems stuck on this constant anti-SJW type thing. You're not going to remove these people from life. You're going to have to, unfortunately, coexist. So just get over it, seriously.
Yeah. If you want to deal with SJWs, that's a different fight, and it's a very long-term fight. All I care about is making gaming apolitical and not a platform for your slacktivism. If you really want to do something, if you want to make a game with positive characters, like if you look at the Street Fighter games, you get people from all different colors and backgrounds and everything, and those games are amazing. Now, if you really, and they were freaking done in Japan, and they're doing it right. If you want to do your game with whatever kind of thing you want, and it's a good game, then it will get support. Let people make the games they want. Let's not tell them what they can and can't do politically.
Exactly.
And if you want to make a good game based on SJW values, and it's a good game, you know, not something like boring and dumb that the online articles is going to say is good when it's not, fine, do it. But make a game and stop doing all this crazy political shit. Just make a game so people can have frickin' fun.
As far as the point of cultural backlash, I really need the context of that. Are you saying that Gamergate will have a backlash against hardcore gamers, or are you talking about the battle that other people like myself will continue to have with SJWs for fucking up their lives? That's the question I have to the people in the chat that I can't read because I'm on my phone.
Okay, to answer another question, it was from Goose. He asks, hold on one moment, let me just scroll up again.
Mittens, if you're still here, pop in the chat and instead of furiously hammering on the keyboard, seriously, if you've got
Be
problems.
nice, sir, be nice.
I'm saying, come in the chat. If you've got time, come in the chat.
All right.
Seriously.
Yeah, I mean, he's now saying that because we want to have the sorry, got kind of just got parked at the station and never took off. He's just arguing that we're censoring games that are not social justice warrior oriented.
No, we're not.
Yeah, because of what we're doing with forced censorship. That's what I believe he is getting for.
Whatever games you want, but don't use game reviews to push agendas. Don't use places where people are going to find out what's going on with their games to push agendas. Don't push agendas. This isn't your political fight. This isn't your activist fight. I don't care if you're right, left, or bumfuck, whatever. And Rebuild is about games and game devs. So can we stop talking about these SJW people? They don't matter.
And also on that, two things on that note. When they say that we are force censoring their games, I don't know where they're coming from. We're not against their games. We're not against their games' existence. I mean, like Sour showed me a couple of their Feelings games, and I didn't like them.
I play them all the time, and I think the concept was there. Like some of them, they want to highlight certain LGBTQ topics, and that's fine. But the execution is a little flawed, in my opinion. But they have every right to make whatever game jam, whatever games they want to make. I'll just play them and be sarcastic about it, because that's just how I am with almost every game.
You know what? I need to start telling them how to make their games better.
But
President 2014.
I would never want anyone to censor anything of that sort, because that's honestly what they try to do. And honestly, I get where he's coming from. To me, it doesn't seem like it's a coincidence either. They're all from the same place. They all have the same agenda. They all have know the same people. They all just so happen to drink the same Kool-Aid. So really, I understand why they want to talk about that. But at this point, that doesn't really move us forward in a positive way. And I think at this point, I would rather gain allies than try to fight with people over something political that I really don't want to be political about.
Mittens, I'm not against SJWs at all like that. So
yeah. Now he's saying, for clarifications, Mittens said we are against SJWs who are in favor of censoring non-SJW games, therefore we're political because of that.
All right.
Yeah, because we want to remain apolitical, we're political. Fine. That's what you think. And then he's saying 2 days. He'll be here in 2 days. That sounds very internet tough guy-ish.
Mate, I'll be here in 2 fucking days. I'll fucking have you, mate. You
Alright, I think...
I think
we need to move on to another...
there, John.
Yeah, I think we need to move on to another question. One I saw earlier that I want to get to. If Oliver and Rogue's source is correct, of the LWs, which would be most beneficial to GG if they sent threats to themselves, and against SJWs if the effect wouldn't be the same?
It was two, right?
Say that again?
There was 2 of them, right? Brianna, Weir, and Anita. Those would be the biggest.
I'm going to say that I find these suspicions to be purely based on speculation. So I'm going to kind of deflect the question because I don't like engaging in speculation for the most part. However, I will do this much speculation. I do believe because Rockstar and Oliver Campbell leaked exposed their cards, that they basically let off that they know, that means that gave the opposition opportunity to cover their trail and to cover it up so that way it's never found out and the evidence is never brought to light. So in all honesty, I do not personally believe that those allegations will be brought to surface, and I would not count on that. I would instead focus on other projects the community of Gamergate and the Consumer Vault is working on. That's just my opinion on it. But if it does come to light and it's proven we have a smoking gun, that would be great because the LWs keep on going back. The literally who's, that is Zoe, Anita, Brianna, they keep on trying to put themselves in the conversation. They keep on trying to throw stuff at us, and having them off our backs would help us. I wish they'd stop on their own, but I don't expect that to ever happen. What are your guys' thoughts?
I prefer calling them Mojo Jojos because they're so oppressed.
Oh yeah, I'm
oppressed.
Oh, that episode.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm going to jump into this and say that most probably, in terms of who needs to do it, I'd have to say it's more likely Quinn and Wu who fake death threats against themselves. Since
Quinn never said anything about death threats, as far as I remember.
Oh, well, just threats about themselves.
She said she was being harassed, not death threats. So that's what leads me to believe Brianna Wu and Anita, they both have specifically said death threats.
Oh, if they said that, all right. I was always under the impression that someone said death threats about Quinn. Yeah.
No. Quinn's just like wants everyone to play the world's smallest violin for her.
Yeah. Then by that logic,
it
would have to be Anita and Wu, just because they're the only ones out of the three who have claimed to have had death threats put against them. And I do have to say that because it did come from the FBI, or at least that's what the source was claimed, for them to cover that up would mean they have to have influence within the government to delete the case file. So if they have that, well, that in itself is a hell of a crime and shows how much reach they have, which is a bit horrifying if they can do that.
It's all over.
Yep, they get the government. It's power that even Jack Thompson would be envious of. Although, speaking of him, he's trending on Twitter right now.
To answer a question that just popped up in the chat from Eek Soul Brother, is there a list of other untainted indie gaming companies that could be included in the Rebuild initiative? The OP Rebuild companies were pretty much only AAA developers. I'm pretty sure there are. We'll be looking into that. I don't believe that companies are inherently tainted if they give an opposing view on this necessarily. Like we said before, if they have reasonable opinions they wish to weigh forth and concerns that aren't in line with what we're saying, like if they want to bring up some points like, well, maybe you're wrong about this, and the other thing, and they want to speak out about it, we should be opening to listening to those points if they are legitimate. Like, there's a lot of poo going on Twitter, and I am a believer in the phrase, don't touch the poo, but not everything is poo. So, we should be looking into the indie scene as well as we are going to be looking into the indie scene as well as the AAA scene, and if you can reach out to them yourselves, go for it. If you can promote sending some letters to them yourself, go for it, but be sure to be careful not to spread people too thin, because we do want to focus sending letters all at once to the same people at the same time.
Yeah, the other thing is, at this point, we're working on the ESA at the moment, in terms of the members of there due to their influence, but by no means are we going to avoid the smaller independent companies. I mean, if you have companies you feel that we should be reaching out to, just go to the ops and just post a list and information of the developers we should be contacting. You have to remember, this is not a one-way street in terms of information. You can contribute as well. It's kind of like the same with the movement as a whole. There are no leaders, just people who give information out and people follow them. So you can step up as well if you want to give out the information.
Exactly.
Any other questions? Oh,
What will you
impression.
stick with, Trey?
The impression Ollie and Rogue gave was the agencies in questions had indeed established that they did in fact threaten themselves, and it was not just that it was being investigated. Oh.
When? Why have we all missed this? Because I've been on a lot of Gamergate streams and everyone seems to have missed that, if that's true.
What? What did we miss?
Apparently it's been, am I wrong in saying that someone said it was proven that someone threatened themselves?
It has not been proven.
No, someone in chat said that, I think. That's what I was asking.
Well, the impression Ollie and Rogue gave was that, so from how there isn't any direct evidence or a smoking gun per se, it's just that Oliver and Rogue Star gave the impression.
The impression.
Well, it was more Oliver that gave it. Rogue just
Yes.
backed up the source. That was but it hasn't been confirmed, so I don't know why we're even talking about it. It's absolutely irrelevant at this point.
But my ethics.
I think that's what some people need to step away from, this constant polarization of SJWs versus supposedly normal people and things like that. It's really hampering people's logic, and thinking with regards to how we're trying to communicate with one another.
I dislike SJWs, and I am in total agreement with you.
I think that's where that mittens was coming from, basically. It's like, it's just, what we're trying to do is to literally give these people an opportunity to speak. If they are being bullied, it might not necessarily be for X amount of reasons or Y amount of reasons, or they might not basically agree with, the stances and things like that, but they have their right, to speak without fear of basically not being able to sort of toe the party line and have their jobs put at risk. But what they say might not be, in coherence with what a lot of people want to think. You've got to think beyond sort of like these partisan type of lines.
To wrap this question up, all we really know is that Oliver said that 2 people threatened themselves. That's it. We don't know anything other than that. So let's just leave it at that.
Well,
and if something comes of it, good. If something doesn't come of it, no loss.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll be wrapping up the show shortly, I believe, although we may have someone hop on. If they get back in touch with me, I'm not sure. But let's just close out and talk about Rebuild a bit more. This campaign relies on you, the individuals, to write these letters and to send them out there. We need to show the number of people in support of it, and we need those letters sent, we need those emails sent, and put in your best effort. It will only take about 15 minutes of your time per day. Just send one to the ESA and one to the EMA to start. Send one to developers you love, and garner their support.
Yeah, and then also in case one of the letters of the day is to a company you don't like, it would be like, say, hey, we should write to Ubisoft, considering a lot of people are going to hold their nose to that. You have to remember, we're still the consumers and they're still the producers. They still have to try to listen to us. If we don't buy what they make, they still have to pander to our needs. So just remember, even though it seems like, Ubisoft is just producing pure shit, we still have power over them to buy their products.
Yeah, I heard that Far Cry was good. That's relevant.
Well, it's less buggy than Unity, so that's kind of a plus.
Yeah, but is it possible to be more buggy?
That's something to look into.
Yeah. And we really don't know what the word of one developer, like I said before, we don't know if those developers' words are actually reflective of the game or to what extent they are reflective of the game. It's really just scuttlebutt. He could just be taking the piss at us for all we know. But if that makes you feel inclined not to buy that game, go for it. Boycott it. At the same time, Ubisoft is a big, big company, and there's a lot of developers there. And I'm pretty sure there's at least one game from, like, for most people, there's at least one game they really love that Ubisoft has had a hand in making come to fruition. So if you're gonna, so do appeal to these developers that we campaign a right to.
Just remember, it's strength in numbers. The more handwritten letters they get, the more likely it's going to catch their attention, and the more likely we'll be able to open a dialogue and rebuild relationships.
Mm-hmm. And also, Facial Goose has another question. With reference to the Unity launch, would critical letters that express disappointment but confidence that they'll fix the issues fall within the purview of rebuild? I would say that maybe. It depends on how you write it and if you think it's important to include. Wouldn't necessarily want to push that angle, but if you feel personally that this is something that they could fix by writing this and establishing that kind of communication, I don't see a reason why not to, just so long as you word it carefully and it doesn't come across as an attack.
Yeah, because that's probably the worst thing you can do. It's basically going, even if you're being constructive criticism, if they hear anything of the lines like, your game is shit, that'd be much less inclined. Yeah, I mean, if you need to include it in, I don't see an issue with that. It's just tact. That will be the word of the day, tact.
Word of the day with Trey Knight.
You'll have to teach people what that means, because I'm pretty sure most people don't.
Well, let's get out our dictionaries. Tact.
And
sensitivity in dealing with others are a difficult issue. It is a noun.
Be right back a second.
We may have to end every show with Trey Knight giving the word of the day.
Yeah, boy, now I have to actually use my dictionary.
You could just go to dictionary.com.
Oh, well, I was using the one on my computer.
Ah, nice. Anyway, we're going to be wrapping up soon. Does anyone in the chat have any more questions about Rebuild?
Yeah, it's going to be a minute delay, so we got to fill the dead air.
I think you need to realise that it's actually Facile Goose and not Facial Goose. If you do want to give the goose a facial, feel free, but that's on your own dime.
Nah, I'd rather. Why?
Wait, what? Back. What happened whilst I was gone?
Black Knight proposed to serve, and that he accepted, and now there's a wedding going to be happening
Have you
next
proposed
week.
to Sour? Yeah.
I'll never marry a Brit.
No, I like how it wasn't the guy for you, it was the Brit. You were like, a guy I can deal with, but
hey, I gotta have some standards.
Hey,
All right. On that note, I think we talked about everything that was needed to be discussed, unless one of our guest hosts has a concern. All right. On that note, I'll just close off the show. Thanks to everyone who tuned in to watch. The show can't be done without you viewers, and also thanks to my co-hosts, Knight, Serb, Pidge, Gwendolyn Knight, Sour, and Tar, who seems to be in absentia. Thank you all for watching, and thanks for all your input. Thanks for your questions, and please do write those letters. They're very important that you send them out. Otherwise, the Rebuild Initiative will not work. Thank you for spending your time, and I hope we answered your concerns. And have a good night.
9/11 was an inside job.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Sorry, I was late.
That's all right. Have a good night, everybody. Sorry, you want to say good night?
Oh, yeah. Good night.
Have a great night, everybody.
9/11.